Not sure why nobody else could hear me. So what I'm gonna do is we're going to go this route and just use Restream or not. Here we go. Alrighty, hold up. Got feedback somewhere. Okay. Now, checking sound, making sure that I can be heard. I think the mic is working. Checking sound, making sure that I can be heard. All right, so I came across these two articles on the Uvalde school shooting and on the gunman himself. The first one that I want to share is about the gunman. His father apparently gave someone an interview and admits to being absent from the troubled teen's life. But we already knew that from the neighbor. Apparently, this boy and his sister at one point were just kind of thrown off on their elderly grandmother. And as a result, the grandmother was shot in the face by this 18-year-old who failed to graduate high school and took it out on a school full of elementary students. So the title says Texas gunman's father admits being absent from troubled teen's life. The father of the Uvalde school gunman spoke to the Daily Beast about his relationship with his teen son, admitting that he was not present in Salvador Ramos's life. The 42-year-old Salvador Ramos apologized for what his 18-year-old son did on Thursday in the Thursday interview. I never expected my son to do something like that. He should have just killed me, instead of doing something like that to someone else, the elder Ramos said. Well, dang, one thing I can say, I've never heard that before. He then admitted that since the pandemic, his relationship with the troubled teenager worsened because the man wouldn't visit his mother for fear she contracts the deadly virus while she fought cancer. The father added that him working out of town made him further away from Ramos. The last time he tried to speak to him was a month ago, and at that time, Ramos refused to talk. He was a quiet person, stuck to himself. He didn't bother anybody. People were always bothering him, the elder Ramos said. So it seems like everybody is saying that this boy was bullied. I still don't see that as an excuse to do something like this. I mean, whether he was bullied or not doesn't excuse, not only does it not excuse shooting up an elementary school full of children who you more than likely never interacted with because of the major age difference between you, but it doesn't excuse taking it out this way on anyone, even if it was the people who actually were bullying you. The other article that I wanted to share. And before I get off that topic, I feel like the whole I didn't want to expose my mom to coronavirus was a weak cop out because you have your teen son living there who goes to school and encounters umpteen people every day and then comes home to your mother who's fighting cancer. So that is not an excuse, because if you really wanted to visit him, spend time with him, talk to him, be a part of his life, you could have visited and stayed outside. You didn't have to go in the house. You could have visited and been outside and maintained 6 or 10 feet or whatever distance from your mother to feel comfortable that you're not putting her in danger of exposure from you. So I get that this is probably as heavy on him as it is on anyone else, because I don't know how I would react if one of my kids were to do something like this. Thank God they won't. But if one of my kids was to do something like this, I don't even know how I could hold my head up. Or, I mean, I would be devastated. But I can't use a lame excuse to try to justify why I wasn't there for my child who, by my own statements, I know that this child needed my help. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up one way or the other, because he says that he never bothered anyone. People bothered him. So you knew there was an issue going on there. But everybody's going to be given all kinds of excuses in this case. We see it every time something like this happens. There's finger pointing, blame laying, passing the buck. Okay, so Texas school shooting live update. I'm so sorry, guys. I have no idea why it is. Every time I get on here and go live, I just start yawning. I have not yawned once in the last 3-4 hours. Now all of a sudden, I'm yawning every 5 seconds. I don't know. Maybe it's the headset messing with the pressure in my ears or something. Take one of them off and see if that helps. Texas school shooting live updates. I was misled on police response, governor says. I'm absolutely livid about that, Governor Greg Abbott said Friday. A small town in rural Texas is reeling after a gunman opened fire at an elementary school on Tuesday, killing 19 children. Two teachers were also among those killed at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, according to authorities. Prior to opening fire at the school, the suspect also allegedly shot his grandmother, officials said. The alleged gunman, identified by authorities as 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, a student at Uvalde High School, is dead. Texas Governor Greg Abbott said he was, quote, misled, unquote, about the response to the Uvalde school shooting. I'm livid about what happened, Abbott said during a press briefing Friday, hours after the Texas Department of Public Safety detailed missteps that led to a 35-minute wait to breach the classroom where the shooter was. As everybody has learned, the information that I was given turned out in part to be inaccurate. And I'm absolutely livid about that, Abbott said Friday. There are people who deserve answers the most. And those are the families whose lives have been destroyed. They need answers that are accurate. And it is inexcusable that they may suffer from any inaccurate information whatsoever. The governor said there will be investigations into the release of information on the shooting and the strategy employed in the response. On Wednesday, Abbott said an officer had confronted the shooter at the entrance of the school building, which was not the case. But the reality is, as horrible as it happened, as horrible as what happened, it could have been worse. He also said at that time, the reason it was not worse is because law enforcement officials did what they do. Uh, no, that's not the reason it wasn't worse. Okay, remember when I talked about this last night, I questioned the whole officer confronted him and he ran in the building thing because there were too many sideways stories. You have one person saying that there was no armed officer readily available when this boy ran into the school. Then they're telling the governor that, oh, there was an officer there who confronted him, but he ran into the building. And my question was, if there was an officer there to confront him, how was he not armed? Every school resource officer I've ever seen has been armed. So that just doesn't add up. Texas officials say gunmen had 1,652 rounds of ammunition. That is like what, three, four, five, almost six times the amount that they said at first, because at first they said he had 375 rounds of ammunition. This is almost six times more, about five and a half times more than what they originally said he had. The gunman had purchased a total of 1,657 rounds of ammunition, 315 of which were inside the school. Stephen McGraw, director of Department of the Texas Department of Public Safety, said Friday. McGraw said 142 of those rounds were spent cartridges and 173 were live rounds. This boy shot 142 rounds in an elementary school. Officials found 922 rounds outside of the school, but on school property. Of those rounds, 22 were spent cartridges and 900 were live rounds. Another 422 live rounds were found at the crash site, McGraw said. The suspect had a total of 60 30-round magazines, 58 of which were at the school. He had fired nearly 200 rounds, most of them inside the school, McGraw said. These numbers are absolutely blowing my mind. 5 of the 17 people injured in the elementary school shooting remain in the hospital on Friday, according to officials. So he had 38 victims total. 2 children and 1 adult were being treated at University Hospital in San Antonio, 2 of whom are in serious condition, and 2 adults are at Brooke Army Medical Center, both in fair condition. A 10-year-old girl was discharged from University Health in San Antonio. Thank God for her life. 8 children and 3 adults were treated and discharged from Uvalde Medical Center earlier this week. As part of its ongoing investigation into Tuesday's shooting, the Texas Department of Public Safety is conducting a review of law enforcement actions. Here we go. This comes after the visibly shaken Stephen McGraw, the director of the Texas Department of Public Safety, revealed a cascading series of police failures before and during one of the deadliest school shootings in the nation's history. A cascading series of police failures before and during one of the deadliest school shootings in the nation's history. The incident commander, the chief of Uvalde ISD police, wrongly believed the incident has transitioned from an active shooter situation to a barricaded subject situation, where the subject had stopped firing and then barricaded himself in a classroom, no longer posing a threat to children. How easy would it have been to find out if that was a classroom that was in use that day? Even if he was barricaded in there, all these officers that you had standing around, someone could have been sent to ask one of the staff at the school, another teacher, a principal, a janitor, whoever they could come in contact with, was room whatever number being used for class today. They had to have heard through that door voices, because not every child in the classroom was killed. So they had to hear crying, they had to hear screaming, they had to hear something through that door. It's not like classrooms are soundproofed. And in any case, if you've got somebody shooting up a school, especially an elementary school full of babies, you should not consider that person to be no threat until that threat is either restrained or eliminated. The shooter is no longer a threat at the point at which you have them handcuffed and in a police car, or at the point which they're full of bullets and on the ground. Barricaded in a room is nothing. How do you know he didn't have hostages in there? Which he did. How do you know that he didn't have a hostage? Even if he was barricaded in a room, you can't see in there. It should have been treated as an active shooter until they had eyes on him, either in cuffs or on the ground. He thought there was time, McGraw said. How did you think there was time? McGraw said there may have been a belief by the incident commander that no one was alive anymore inside the classrooms. All those bullets flying, and you just assume that nobody was alive. You don't give it a chance that, Lord, you know the old saying about assumptions, making an assumption. But he detailed multiple 911 calls made from inside the classrooms, on which callers explicitly said several children were alive and trapped inside with the shooter. Callers at several points asked for police to be sent in. I know that I read an article last night that said that one child was calling and told them that 12 of their friends were dead and there were 8 or 9 of them that were still alive. The thing that really is just sticking in my gullet is the fact that at some point after this, there was a time frame when he stopped shooting, and then he started shooting again. Killing more people. I have not been able to get specifics on how long that time frame was. Did he stop shooting for 10 minutes? Did he stop shooting for 20 minutes? I have no idea what he was doing in that time frame. Was he sitting in the room with these kids, deciding whether or not to kill some more of them? But they had active calls to emergency dispatch coming from inside the classrooms. Under no circumstances should any of these officers have assumed that everyone was dead. This should have been treated as we're going in here and we're going to save as many as we possibly can. The assumption should have been that maybe everybody was shot, but they're still alive. The primary focus should have been to eliminate the shooter by whatever means necessary for the safety of the children in this school. Those inside a classroom with the shooter made several calls to 911. But the tactical unit that arrived at 12:15 p.m. waited 35 minutes before breaching the classroom. Steve McGraw, director of Texas Department of Public Safety, said at a press conference Friday. A 911 call was made at 12:03 p.m. from room 112 that lasted 23 seconds. McGraw did not identify the caller. She called back at 12:10 p.m. and advised that there were multiple dead in the classroom, McGraw said. So that's at least one person that was alive in that classroom with the shooter. The person then called again at 12:13 and again at 12:16 when she said there were 8 to 9 students who were still alive, McGraw said. A call was made by someone else from room 111 at 12:19 p.m. The caller hung up when another student told her to hang up. At 12:21 p.m., 3 shots were heard over a 911 call. At 12:36 p.m., another 911 call was made by the initial caller and it lasted for 21 seconds. The student caller was told to stay on the line and be very quiet. She told 911 the gunman shot the door. At approximately 12:43 p.m. and 12:47 p.m., she asked 911 to please send the police now. The caller said she could hear police next door at 12:46 p.m. At 12:50 p.m., the Border Patrol tactical unit finally breached the door and shot the suspect. This baby was on this phone, literally begging for someone to come and save her life and the lives of her friends. Please send the police now. Please help us now. Authorities shed more light on some of the suspects' digital footprint in the weeks and months before Tuesday's mass shooting. In September 2021, suspected gunman Salvador Ramos asked his sister to buy him a gun and she flatly refused. Stephen McGraw, director of the Texas Department of Public Safety, told reporters during a briefing Friday he did not know where this exchange took place. On February 28th, in an Instagram group chat with 4 people, they discussed Ramos being a school shooter. People knew this boy was a potential threat. The next day, on March 1st, in an Instagram chat with 4 people, Ramos discussed buying a gun. 2 days later, on March 3rd, in another 4-person chat, someone said, "Word on the street is you are buying a gun," according to McGraw. Ramos reportedly replied, "Just bought something." On March 14th, Ramos posted on Instagram, 10 more days, according to McGraw. Someone replied, "Are you going to shoot up a school or something?" To which Ramos replied, "No, stop asking dumb questions. You'll see," according to McGraw. So this whole theme of him being a school shooter is an ongoing thing. This is not a one-time joke. And the fact that it was a recurring theme tells me that people had a feeling about him on some deeper level. People that interact with him and knew him had a feeling on a gut level. And they didn't just have that feeling by accident. Something caused them to continually think of him as a school shooter and to continually put it out there. Are you going to shoot up a school? He's going to shoot up a school. Meta said it is working with law enforcement regarding the concerning messages sent on Instagram. The messages Governor Abbott described were private one-to-one text messages that were discovered after the terrible tragedy occurred. Meta spokesperson Andy Stone said on Twitter, "We are closely cooperating with law enforcement in their ongoing investigation. Investigators are also looking into people that the suspect may have communicated with in video game chat rooms who may have known something," McGraw said. Officers did not breach classroom for 35 minutes while the shooter was inside. Stephen McGraw admitting it was the wrong decision for officers not to go into the classroom where the suspect was for 35 minutes after a tactical unit arrived. 35 minutes after a tactical unit arrived. Officers did not go into the classroom where the suspect was for 35 minutes after a tactical unit arrived. Children were inside the classroom with him making 911 calls, McGraw said in a press conference. They waited 35 minutes after they had the tactical unit there, present, and ready to go. So what is the excuse for that? Beforehand, you could say we didn't have breaching tools, we didn't have this, we didn't have shields, we didn't have battering rams, but you waited 35 minutes after you had all this. It's killing me that these children's parents are going to have to hear this. It's killing me that their parents are going to have to hear how these officers basically sat around twiddling their fingers while these children were in there being slaughtered. These 19 innocent children and 2 teachers. At least one of which we know for a fact was on the phone begging for someone to come and save their lives. And the lifesavers were standing outside waiting on what? The incident commander believed he was dealing with a barricaded subject inside the school and the children were not at risk. They're not at risk, but you have 8 or 9 living children in the room with this shooter who just spent 142 rounds of ammunition inside this school. I'm sure at the time nobody was sitting there counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 20, 142 rounds just popped off. But I know if you heard 142 rounds pop off, you know that's a whole lot of bullets. You didn't keep count, but you know somebody was popping off a whole lot of bullets. A tactical team for Customs and Border Patrol was on the scene at 12:15 p.m., but did not breach the classroom until 12:50 p.m. Of course, it wasn't the right decision, McGraw said. It was the wrong decision. 12:15 p.m. Let's go back up here for a second. At 12:13 and 12:16 p.m., that baby girl called back. At 12:21, 6 minutes after the tactical team was there, 3 more shots were fired. They had to hear that. At 12:19, 4 minutes after the tactical team arrived, someone made a phone call and they hung up after another student told her to hang up. So that's at least 2 people that were in there still alive. but they assumed that he was no longer a threat. Y'all know what this article seems like? It's just gonna go on forever, and I'm getting so pissed off reading this. I am angry, I'm hurt, I'm on the verge of tears because this makes no sense, and I cannot get it out of my head. The image of this baby girl and at least one other person probably hiding in the corner of a closet somewhere, calling 911, begging for their life. 7, 8, 9 years old, maybe 10. Please come help me. Please come save me. He's in here shooting. There's 12 people dead in here. There's 8 or 9 of us still alive. Please come save us. Please come help us. Please, please, please send the police in here. Can you imagine the fear? I'm not gonna get graphic, but I'm sure everyone here has seen what a bullet can do to an adult. If you follow true crime, you've seen some pictures. You've seen what a bullet can do to an adult's body. Can you imagine what a bullet from an AR-15 could do to a 7, 8, 9 year old child? And this baby had to see that and spend at least 35 unnecessarily torturous minutes on the phone begging for help. If you're not mad, you're not human. I'm gonna get off of here. I'll come back later because if I don't get off of here in a minute, I'm either gonna scream, I'm gonna claw my eyes out, I'm gonna pull my hair out, I'm gonna cuss, I'm gonna do something. But I need to get off of here. 35 minutes. 35 minutes. Unnecessary minutes. I can almost give them a pass on not breaching that door without breach tools. I could give them hell and say, well, you could have went around and bashed out a window or something. I don't even know the setup of the school. I could say they could have done a whole lot of things. But what I will say is I'm gonna give them an almost pass on not trying to get into that room before the tactical unit arrived with the proper equipment necessary to get in that room by any means necessary. But for 35 minutes after they had what they needed to get in that room, they did absolutely nothing. I am so ready to hear the lame excuse for that. Y'all, I'm gonna see y'all later. I'm heated. I don't even know what other word to use. I'll take it easy.